Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of We Watch Shudder. My name is Michelle, and who's here with me?
It's JD.
It's JD, guys.
It's
JD.
That was really quick and aggressive for some reason. I'm not sure why. Sorry about that.
I didn't think it was aggressive, but now I'm wondering if it was aggressive. Do I not know what your aggression is like?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe. I guess
Anyway,
maybe aggressive
hi.
wasn't the word I was looking for. Maybe abrupt, and I just landed on aggressive because I was trying to put things together quickly. I don't know, Michelle.
I don't know either. Oh, I didn't
Right.
even... never mind. Sorry, I'm drunk, so it's going to be very hard for me to stay on topic. Okay, hi. Welcome to We Watch Shudder. We Watch Shudder. It's a streaming service for horror movies and horror-adjacent movies and TV shows, and we like it, and we watch it, and it's pretty good, and we watched a movie today. JD, what did we watch?
We sure did, Michelle. I think we can't gloss over this whole issue here now that you've let the cat out of the bag right out of the gate here. Before we get into the shark movie, Michelle tonight spent some time at the zoo here in Fargo, where apparently they do this thing where every now and then, in the later night times, they set up the zoo with a bunch of beer tables from like local and regional microbreweries and craft breweries, and then you go and you just pay a cover charge. And you just walk around at the zoo getting shit-faced all night.
Yeah.
And I think, first of all, a much younger version of me would have thought that was fucking rad. But a 43-year-old me is just like, man, why can't we just have that but without the booze? You know, no kids, no nothing. I just want to, can't I just go to the zoo at twilight and pet a goose or something? I don't know why I picked a goose, but...
The best part about going to the zoo and getting drunk is that I don't have any inhibitions about buying things, so I didn't even show you what I bought today.
What did
And
you
it
buy
does
today
lead
at the
into
zoo
our
while you were
movie.
drunk, Michelle?
It's broken. It's been giving me trouble, but it's a little shark, and he's a bubble maker, and he lights up, so I was just spraying bubbles out of this shark.
It's
Because it's
adorable.
Sharksploitation!
Right. Sharksploitation is the movie we're talking
Sharksploitation.
about, guys. New documentary film. I wonder what it's about. The title, it just leaves nothing to the imagination at all. It just goes right for it. It's just straight up called Sharksploitation. And if you know, you know, like what we're about to. It's basically the history of sharks in the movies, and how really, in a lot of ways, there's this entire now subgenre of cinema that is all completely derived from one movie called Jaws back in the 1970s. There is a description about the movie on the Shudder website, but again, it's a documentary film, so I don't know how worried we are about being spoilery here. I'm just going to go ahead and read the description off the website. It's real quick. The ultimate deep dive into the world of shark cinema. Filmmakers, critics, scholars, and conservationists explore the cultural impact on audiences and this misunderstood species. Michelle, let's just not waste any more time. What are your I want to say spoiler-free thoughts because that's what we normally do here, but I don't know that there are really any spoilers for this movie. What are your basic short-form thoughts on Sharksploitation, the documentary?
Yeah, so we don't get an opportunity to discuss documentaries too much on this show. I
Right.
always love it when we do, and I especially love... My rule of thumb is a documentary is good if it will tell me something new. And I kind of assumed, I know about Jaws. I know about Sharknado. What else is this going to hit me with? And oh my God, there were so many movies I had never heard of. So many influences I'd never seen. So many references I never caught. It is chock full of information. It never feels dull. I was constantly watching and constantly interested. And most importantly, it ends on a very important message about conservation. And I am thrilled that is what they left the final message as. I'm going to 5.
Yeah. This is what I actually really love about this documentary is it definitely it hooks you in by telling you it's a documentary about the history of sharks in movies and especially the ultimate sharksploitation genre that's developed over the last 40 odd years. But they very sneakily sneak some actual historical information here about, first of all, and this is something we're going to talk about in detail in a little while here when we really start breaking it down, but some of the major, incredible, very problematic effects that a movie like Jaws or some other things, some other incidents have had on sharks in the world. There are some things they talk about here that I had no idea about, and I really appreciated how they very just coyly snuck a lot of that in here as part of the overall story that's being told here, and I really, really appreciated that. As a documentary goes, it's a very specific topic. And I think obviously it's no coincidence that this is dropping. I believe next week is Shark Week, isn't it? I think.
Yes.
Or coming up soon.
Month.
Yeah, it's so I mean, there you go. The timing is perfect. I think even with that added message of conservationism and ethics around sharks and some of the man-made impacts of these things, it is a kind of a narrow focus, and if you don't know that that's there going in, you might not ever take a look at this. And because of its narrow focus on a very specific thing, I think it limits its appeal to a certain extent, and for that reason alone, I'm giving it a 4.5. But as an execution of a documentary, this is really incredible. It's an excellent. First of all, just like you said, tons of movies that get mentioned here that I have never even heard of, including both very old and very new films, and we're going to talk about a lot of that. We're also going to talk about a lot of our personal favorite shark films. But yeah, that's my overall basic thoughts on the movie. I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Sweet. So it comes out to a 4.75.
Yeah,
awesome.
Shudder really kills it with their documentary releases. Also, just quickly,
Yeah,
I do want to shout out because, I mean, why wouldn't we, as long as we're talking about horror documentary? If you are a horror documentary fan, I also strongly encourage you to check out Screambox if you've never checked out that streaming service. Their selection of movies overall is not as broad-ranging as Shudder's, but they have a lot of really great title-specific and character-specific and genre-specific documentaries like this that are all fantastic. I just wanted to shout that out real quick.
And that is why Shudder does not sponsor us.
Well, if they don't want me to mention Screambox, they can start giving me a $6 a month free subscription.
Yeah, but I love Screambox, and I'm still going to mention it.
Yeah, Screambox is great. Frankly, I don't think the people at Shudder would care. But
horror people are just cool with other horror people.
Oh, yeah.
It's not really a competition.
Very much a family.
Yeah,
we're all just part of the same passionate group of people. And look, at the end of the day, Shudder does a lot of great things, but they can't put out everything, right? They have their limits eventually as well. So anyway, the whole discussion of a shark movie turned into a weird sort of meta discussion on streaming services and whether or not we should talk about one in a show that's about another. Michelle, we should probably just talk about this movie, huh?
No, I liked watching you flounder.
Oh, fuck you.
Did you see what I did there?
Oh, God.
Don't worry, I'm not finished. This is going to be an episode you can really sink your teeth into.
Oh, fuck you.
We can take
Stop
a bite out of this topic.
You've been plotting this all goddamn day, haven't you?
The only one I had was finished. The rest just came to me. I'm a genius. Okay.
So, guys, I mean, like I said, I don't know what we could really do that would be considered spoilers here, because this is just very much a retrospective on sharks in the movies and some other things. But if for any reason you do want to see it before we talk about a whole lot of things in detail, there are a few things I'm going to mention here when we talk about the movies I've never heard of, where I am going to tell you exactly why I need to see these movies immediately, and you might want to enjoy that moment of finding that one clip of one movie that's an hour and 10 minutes into the documentary, and they never mention it before or again, and nobody even mentions it by name. It just shows up for one brief clip. and you're like, holy fuck, I have to know what this movie is. We'll talk about that in a little while, but if you want to get your own opportunity at that experience, you're going to want to hit that pause button right about now. All right, did you come back? I hope you came back. Do you think they came back, Michelle?
I think so. I actually, while drunk, was talking to my friend Jenna, who is also drunk, and telling us that she listens to every episode and she never pauses and she just lets everything get spoiled, and then she goes back and watches the movie. And I think that might be more chaotic than the people who don't even like horror movies and listen to our podcast.
That might, why would you let us do
crazy.
That to you?
Yeah,
that's wild.
I don't know. So, hi, Jenna. You just had Sharksploitation ruined for you, but I hope that you go back and watch it anyway. And I know you will.
Okay. So, Michelle, I guess starting from the top here, with just, trying to figure out a good way to be able to actually get some discussion out of this, why don't we start with, are you personally, in general, a fan of shark movies? Is it something that there are some of them that you like, you're obsessive? Tell me about your relationship with Sharksploitation.
I actually don't think I really enjoy the Sharksploitation genre. I do like ridiculous movies. Lawmageddon, Carousel, obviously Sharknado. So those ones that are really just out there and ridiculous. The problem is that shark movies are kind of oversaturated for me. So I do want to go watch Sharktopus because that thing was adorable, as they covered in the documentary. But there's just too much of it. I don't really care too much. I don't find sharks scary, so I'm just watching it for the ridiculous factor. But I find that watching a ridiculous movie on your own just isn't as fun as watching it at a party with friends, and I don't have friends, so I don't really have the opportunity to do that.
Wow, what am I, Michelle? What am I?
Have we ever watched a shark movie together, JD?
Okay, that's a fair point.
We should remedy that.
We probably should, actually. There's one here in particular that we're going to talk about.
Okay.
That
bonus episode.
But anyway, no, I'm actually kind of right there with you. I wouldn't say that I am a crazy shark horror, Sharksploitation devotee, right? There are certain specific ones that I've seen and that I thought were clever. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. My favorite thing about Sharksploitation in 90% of cases is just the fucking titles, right? The titles and the gimmicks. Just the ideas in a lot of cases are enough for me. That's ridiculous. I get a good chuckle. I was not aware. Like, I thought I had a good handle on what weird fucking shark movies are out there. And I didn't have a clue. And what I love about this documentary as sort of a timeline is it definitely identifies Sharksploitation specifically as that kind of post-Jaws wave that just started and has never let up. Jaws was certainly not the first movie to include shark attacks or shark violence or anything, and they talk about a lot of older movies in this. That explosion going forward was kind of wild. Was there anything in that early part of shark movie history that really stuck out to you, or anything that jumped out as something that you want to go see as soon as you can?
Yes. So I'm sure somebody made a list of all the movies referenced in this, kind of like they do with some other type of documentaries, I'm hoping.
Sure.
Because I do want to go back and write down some of those classics. The one that I did make sure to write down was the Blue Water White Death movie from 1971. I had never, ever heard of that. And I think that's why it gets a 5 from me, too, because I don't have a lot of classic horror movie knowledge in my brain. So being able to get more of that information, I always like when I hear about a classic movie that I've never heard of. And seeing the clips and things, I do want to go back and watch that one for sure. I'm sure I didn't make a ton of notes because I was just really into this one, but that was the one that I was like, okay, write this down and then come back and find out the other movie names later. What was the one that you were talking about that you really had to see?
Oh, well, that's coming up here after we get past Jaws, but no, definitely in that pre-Jaws era, which they really they don't spend a lot of time on, but they definitely acknowledge a lot of things. That was the one that really stood out to me as well, was Blue Water White Death. If for no other reason than, first of all, that's a fucking rad title. That's metal as fuck. The other thing, though, in that early era that stuck out to me was this idea of like one of the talking heads in here talks about how like if you go to the right cultures, there are actually some pretty wild fucking cool shark character mythologies and things. Like that whole thing about the shark god who turned himself into a person and then had a baby with a real person, which is a common trope in mythology across the world, right? But and then they hit you with, so they have a baby who's a demigod, and he's a man, but then he's got a fucking shark mouth on the middle of his back. I was just like, what the fuck? Why have I never seen this in a movie? Like, why? I wish somebody would do something with that, and I need to look into that more, because I almost feel like there's this whole world of ocean-faring culture shark mythology now that I'm just totally oblivious to, that I want to find out more about.
I concur.
Excellent. Anyway, guys, so then, of course, we ultimately get to Jaws, and that's the place where everything just goes haywire. My very favorite thing when we get there is how they there's an interview clip with Roger Corman, and frankly, I think he hits the nail on the head when he talks about how Jaws, while it's certainly, and he very readily admits that it's a much better thing than they ever did, Jaws in its own way was just a big budget studio filmmaking catching up and coming back around to what B movies had been trying to do for years, right, with their weird sea monster movies and things like that. I really appreciated that, and I think that's something that like genre movies and exploitation movies are really sort of derided by a lot of critics, and they don't, I think, get the genuine respect they deserve in the way that they've influenced just the overall surface of cinema in general. And so I really appreciated that. How old were you when you first saw Jaws, Michelle? I know you saw so many of these fucking movies at a really ridiculous age.
I know I saw it as a kid many times. It's just something that I grew up with. I can't tell you the first time.
Sure.
Did you have a monumental moment that you remember the
first
time you
saw it? No, and that's the weird
No?
thing to me is I know so many people who like can... Like it feels like they can almost tell you day and date when they first saw that movie and how it really had that impact on them. And it never really had that impact on me, even as a youngster. Like, obviously, is big crazy shark, but like Jason Voorhees had a bigger impact on me at 7 years old than Jaws did. Right, and Jaws way more plausible, I guess, in certain ways, at least if you don't actually know anything about sharks. And so that's always why it's very interesting to me, and especially in this, when they talk about what really hit me is they talk about how in the wake of Jaws, and this is where a lot of the conservationism and animal protection themes start to come in. In the wake of Jaws, like shark fishing and shark hunting became such a craze that one of these folks tells us that to this day there are certain shark species off coastal waters in the United States and other places that are struggling to recover from the impact of what Jaws did to people and their attitude towards sharks. And that, to me, is fucking crazy. Like, I can't think of any other horror movie that has ever had that level of, like, real-world consequences. Like, The Exorcist fucked a lot of people up, right? And people, like, psychologically, but, like, hard, real-world destruction. How... That movie drove this country crazy for about a year and a half.
I think part of it is a lot of those movies that did cause kind of mass panic, like The Exorcist, Blair Witch Project, when they didn't know if those people were actually alive. the War of the Worlds radio broadcast, those kinds of things. People were definitely freaked out, but they didn't have a way to channel that fear. Jaws was something that they could say, oh, sharks did this, so we can eliminate sharks. War of the Worlds, they were scared, but what are they going to do against aliens?
Right,
Blair Witch Project,
right.
they're just scared of the woods. Are they going to go burn down the woods? I think
Right.
Jaws is one of those because they actually had a thing that they could say, oh, well, now I'm afraid of sharks, and I'm going to do something about it. And also, I'm an idiot.
Well, and I think also very obviously there's an element of, oh, well, I'm a big, strong man. I ain't scared of no damn shark. I'll go out and hunt one and bring it. Like that whole kind of attitude as well. Just that confronting the danger of the shark when, of course, as they tell us very clearly, like don't get me wrong, sharks are obviously very dangerous. They're predatory creatures that have been around more or less unevolved for centuries, thousands of years, maybe millions. But they're not nearly the terrifying overall threat that people suddenly felt they were. And that is just mind-boggling to me, the effect that movie had on our culture and world in general. That's nuts. I did not know that had happened, and that to me was one of the most powerful bits in this entire film.
Yeah, and I had some knowledge of it, and that's why I'm glad that they did. I didn't know to the extent, but one thing that our listeners probably don't know is I love marine life. I read about marine life in a different life. I would have been a marine biologist, but I live in the upper Midwest, nowhere near the oceans. And also, because I know so much about what is in the oceans, I am scared to go in them. Not because I'm necessarily scared of anything, but I'm just like, I don't want to get like touched by a jellyfish. It's just not my thing. Even if I logically don't know, it's that knowledge that has now developed into an irrational fear, but also a huge respect. And I love marine life. So I did have some knowledge about that just from things that I've read. I'm just fascinated by the ocean.
Sure.
But I did not realize to what extent they had decimated populations of sharks after Jaws.
Yeah, that, like I said, I don't remember the specific person, but some kind of marine biologist or somebody. Like the literal quote is, "There are species to this day that are struggling to recover from the impact." That's insane, but also I think very human and very real. And I really appreciated that element of the film. And so, of course, from there, it goes on to then talk about the explosion, right? Because Jaws was a massive cultural event. I believe that's the film that most people refer to in film history as the first of the blockbuster film era. It was phenomenal in its impact, but it also very quickly, and I think because of how massively popular it was everywhere immediately. It also very quickly started to be parodied, both seriously and comedically, and we get what is ultimately an entire subgenre of cinema originating from that one landmark film moment. And look, let's just get into it here then, Michelle. As we then move forward from Jaws and get into the Sharksploitation era, what are some of your personal favorite shark movies? I know that you, like me, said that you're not the biggest overall shark movie devotee, but like, what are some of them that you really love?
Oh, yeah. I am glad that you asked. I have been frantically trying to find my list because I forgot to pull it up before we started recording, and I had saved it in a weird spot. I had gone back and written down some of my favorites. I did go back and watch some that I hadn't seen, and I do still have a long list to work my way through. My number one shark movie by far is Open Water from 2003, and they cover this in the documentary, and they cover it in a way that I could never explain. how it makes me feel, and then they put it into words, and I went, oh, okay, yep, exactly what they just said is what I love about it. And it is a realistic situation where sharks are not there to be aggressive against humans just because they can. The problem is that there are two people stranded in the middle of the ocean, and sharks become curious about them, and then they view them as a food source. It's just nature doing what nature is meant to do.
Yeah,
and
like maybe eventually the shark bumps into them and it's curious what's going on here, so, maybe it takes a little nip at it to see what happens, and now there's blood in the water, and it's like, ooh, this is maybe something I want to nip a little. It's the other thing, and now I'll be honest with you, Open Water is a movie that still to this day I have not seen.
I was just about to say something. Okay,
well,
I'm going to keep it
minimal.
Michelle,
it's also very much in I don't want to say it's a found footage movie, but it's shot in that very like digital cinema verite kind of found footage style, which they talk about as being very deliberate to put you in the experience, which is of course what that whole style of filmmaking is designed to do. But the wildest part again about this to me is this is based on a real fucking thing that happened. There was a cruise ship that took some people out into the water, or not a cruise ship, but like a ship that took some people out on a scuba diving expedition, and they just fucking left with these two people in the middle of the ocean still because they just didn't count the number of people right. What the, that in itself is one of the most terrifying things I have ever heard in my life. Can you imagine you're out swimming in the middle of the ocean and the boat you came in on just starts fucking puttering away? What the fuck? That's fucking crazy. But a perfect moment for a real sort of survival moment. And that's a movie that especially after seeing this, I definitely want to remedy that and go back and take a look at it. There's another one that came out right around the same time as Open Water, and in that wave that they talk about here where, because shark movies have been through a couple of different phases now, right? You had Jaws and all these big, serious ones, and then you got into the more exploitative kind of almost silly sort of movies. And then there was that wave in like the late 2000s, early 2010s, where now you've got studio pictures being made again that are shark-related, and now you have the two existing next to each other. Anyway, the other movie from that whole section that really struck me as interesting was The Shallows. That's another one that I've heard of.
I'm so glad we're talking about The Shallows.
I haven't seen it. I want to see it. If one of my favorite sort of talking head moments in this documentary is you got this guy talking about just the general plot of that movie and how apparently at one point it's literally for the rest of the movie it's just the one actress in the middle of the ocean in this shark situation, and he just keeps saying the actress, and it's like, I've never even seen this movie. I saw a 3-second clip, and it's like, motherfucker, I know Blake Lively when I see her. How do you not know who that is? It's just like, use her name, for Christ's sake. She's maybe the most beautiful woman in the history of women. Anyway.
I agree.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds, man, that guy, what a... also, what an adorable dynamic those two have. Holy shit. Let's not get sidetracked on this.
Side tangent. That couple is too good looking, and it's not fair. I just need to make that declaration for everybody in the middle of this shark episode that Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively being together and in love is unfair to the rest of us.
Right, yeah. I mean, anyway, just incredibly gorgeous. But then, and like I said, on top of it, then they also have this just like very... openly just like total relationship goals situation going on. God damn. Anyway, I didn't want to get sidetracked here, but I was like, motherfucker, that's Blake Lively. Show some respect. But no, again, like that idea, like when they show her and she's on this tiny rock in the middle of, like, not even far from the beach, but just far enough that there's a shark that, again, is just curious and swimming around and trying to find out what the fuck is going on here. Those are a couple of newer, bigger movies that I'm definitely looking forward to going and checking out here when I have some time. They have been put on my need to see these eventually, hopefully soon list.
Yeah.
Any ridiculous? Sure, go ahead. Sorry.
Hey, God, I still got things.
Michelle's got shit to say.
I got a list. So
Get
The
on it,
Shallows
drunkie.
was also one that too real. Anyway, let me recover. The Shallows is one of those that I had never seen either because I'm like, oh, it's just gonna be Blake Lively being beautiful on a rock for an hour and a half. How entertaining!
Oh yeah, and then she's also
that
incredibly
be?
fucking talented on top of it. As is, like
Yeah.
that whole. Let's not get caught up in this. We can start a whole podcast.
I also kind of figured I knew the plot because nothing bad could happen to her. Her name is Blake Lively, not Blake Deadly.
Oh, fuck you. God damn it, Michelle.
But anyway, I'm so sorry. I'm not.
But
yeah, so
go ahead.
I was just going to say I watched it and it's fucking great and it exceeded all my expectations and then some. So much better than I thought it would be. Definitely worth checking out.
Awesome. One thing that I do want to mention before we get too far away from Jaws, even though we've pretty much abandoned Jaws by about 30 years already, one thing that I just happened to notice, because as any good documentary like this will do, it has, archival footage and posters and advertisement stills and all this historical stuff. And at one point, they had like a newspaper print ad for Jaws, and it's got this description or like a quote from somebody on it. I don't remember exactly what it was, but what I happened to see is there is a line in that quote or blurb, and what it says is, makes Moby Dick look like a pussycat, and all I can say is that fucking marketing guy is hilarious. like somebody they just amused the fuck out of themselves for weeks and weeks and weeks with their own cleverness writing that blurb. I don't know. It's just something I happened to see and I thought it was really funny. Moby Dick makes Moby Dick look like a pussycat.
There's a movie that came out right after The Shallows that I had seen a couple months ago before I even knew we would be doing a Sharksploitation episode, 47 Meters Down.
Yep,
I included
that's another
Fall.
One I haven't seen, again, I'm not a big shark movie guy.
I know. But Fall was a movie that completely blew me away in 2022. So then I had to go and watch 47 Meters Down. I mean, they went really high up. I wanted to see what happened when they went really far down. And that is another one where the sharks aren't really the danger. You have a lot of other danger in your situation. Sharks just happen to add to it. And I think
sharks
that's
are the
kind of shark movie. Exactly, where it's not a shark is stalking me like the reef stalked, which you and I reviewed. Yeah, you and I reviewed the reef stalked and only gave it 1.5 stars.
Yeah,
so I will be going back to see
you.
The reef. Yeah, but the reef stalked. I was like, this is not what shark. Okay, anyway. But 47 Meters Down is also another one that they covered, which I knew that they would because it's Mandy fucking Moore. But that is such a good movie, I think. I had been talking with a friend of mine on 4th of July while I was preparing and getting some shark movies together, and she and I realized that there's just this genre where you're trapped, and whatever that genre of movie is, that's what we like. So The Shallows, you're stuck on a rock. 47 Meters Down, you're stuck in a cage at the bottom of the ocean. Open water, you're stuck in the middle of the ocean. Just these situations where sharks happen to be there is what makes a good shark movie.
Oh, you mean like quicksand? Let's not talk about snakes. Anyway, 47 Meters Down, again, like I said, one I haven't seen, but what really stood out to me about that is they were talking to the director of the film, and he started talking about how one of his biggest touch points for that movie was this movie called Touching the Void. Have you ever seen Touching the Void, Michelle?
I have not, and I did add that one to my list. Too.
Oh my God! So Touching the Void, again, just for a tangent here. This is the movie is crazy because it's a documentary about this real thing that happened where these two dudes who really didn't know each other, they just happened to be experienced climbers and were part of a group and got together to go climb this thing together, and this horrible disaster happens. I don't want to give you too much because
I will be watching
what a fucking story. But here's the part about the production of that movie that blew me away is part of how they produced it as a documentary is the two guys who were involved in this horrible disaster went back to the mountain and climbed it again. And they filmed these guys going up to use those as like dramatic reenactments of what went on in this story. And that was just like, are you fucking serious? These dudes went back. Anyway, that is a movie that I think everybody needs to see. It's so fucking good. I loved it. But again, one of those things where I think here's what happened is I think a lot of shark movies were just kind of silly and ridiculous for long enough that eventually I didn't believe a lot of these newer shark movies with a little bit more of a big studio approach were really going to be worth seeing. I figured they would all still kind of boil down to just Jaws knockoffs. And I think maybe I just didn't give them the credit they deserved, and I've got some makeup homework that needs to be done here. Anything else that before I move on to my next question, Michelle? Man, this is the one that I need to ask you.
You have to acknowledge my pun first. I said that you have some Mako homework because that's
the
shark. Okay, so yeah, go ahead and ask your question.
No, so the other thing I was wondering is obviously we're talking about those. When you're talking about Sharksploitation, we have to talk about the crazy shit. Do you have a favorite crazy shit Sharksploitation movie? And what crazy shit movies did you learn about from this documentary that you really now need to go see?
So oddly enough, when I was making my list, the two craziest shark things that I thought of were not included in this documentary.
Oh, wow.
Shark Tale, where Will Smith is the voice of a fucking shark. That is Uncanny Valley and should have been covered. That is a terrifying movie. And then the other thing...
Do you find Will Smith to be a terrifying predatory creature?
I love Will Smith. We don't need to get into it right now. But oh my God, Shark Tale, I tried to forget about it, and then I remembered while I was making my list, and I went, that movie's terrifying. It's scarier than Jaws ever was for me. My other one was also, I think I just like Uncanny Valley more than I like Absurd, because the other thing I put as like weird shark stuff was Street Sharks, the animated show from the 90s. I think animated creepy sharks scare me so much more than like a tornado of sharks does. But now I need to know yours, because I have a feeling that you've got some wacky stuff.
The weird thing is, again, like ultimately a lot of these are movies that I am aware of, but that I for me, just knowing the gimmick is like, okay, so there's a whole section of this movie where they end up talking about Asylum Filmworks, because of course they do. The Asylum is responsible for probably 50% of every Sharksploitation movie that's been made in the last 15 to 20 years. Like, they just churn these fucking things out. And I love how they talk about the process by which they produce them. Somebody just comes to them with a gimmick and says, hey, make this a movie. And of course they go in ad nauseum about the huge impact of Sharknado, which suddenly became like a touching point for everybody, I think, because it was that over-the-top absurdity. I've never seen anything past the first one, but I am a tongue-in-cheek fan of the first Sharknado, just because, man, what a fucking ridiculous concept. Just absolutely absurd. But some of the things that I saw here, like, because I like titles, like I like the clever titles. There's one that I've only seen a bit of because I fell asleep watching it and have just not gotten around to checking out the rest of it. It's called Shark Side of the Moon, which I thought was a hilarious play on words. And then it's also a movie about how Nazis genetically engineered shark soldiers, and they did it in their crazy lab on the moon. There's one they talk about in here called Shark Encounters of the Third Kind, and then like there's this sequence where one dude is talking about like, oh, you want to know just like a list of some of the shark movies that I've directed, and he rattles off this whole list of them, and he hits one that I just immediately said, holy fuck, How did I know that doesn't exist? I need to see it immediately. And that movie, Michelle, is called Sharkula. A fucking vampire shark?
That's so perfect.
Are you shitting me?
They love blood.
Sharkula?
I'm not shitting you. Sharkula.
I have to find this. I have to find it. Absolutely.
I will help you find it. I'm very good at hunting down obscure movies. I forgot to mention one movie, and it's not absurd, but I would absolutely be so upset if I didn't mention this shark movie that I love. So I do need to go back and just give a quick shout out to Deep Blue Sea from 1999.
Oh yeah, yeah, Deep Blue Sea with that fucking Samuel L. Jackson scene that they talk in at, just of course, how could you not discuss it in the movie like this? Yeah.
I
Deep
also
Blue
fucking love birds, and there's a bird, and that's great. And LL Cool J is friends with the bird, and you know what? That's all I need. From that moment, I was like, I'm sold on this movie. LL Cool J is a chef, and he's got a bird friend. Sweet. I'm on board.
So,
great movie.
So I still need to tell you, though, I had that whole thing about how, like, about an hour and 10 minutes into this movie, you're going to come across this one movie that nobody ever mentions by name. There's just a brief clip of it, and then it's gone, but they put the title up there. It's from 2019. It's called Forest of the Dead Sharks. Did you catch this clip, Michelle?
No, I missed that one. Also, Sharkula is on Tubi.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. Sharkula is on Tubi because, of course, it is.
You're welcome.
So I immediately, once I saw this clip, I was like, wait, did I just see, because the guy's talking about like CG sharks and how important it is or isn't that the quality of the effects be believable in these type of movies. I'm not going to spoil this for you, Michelle. Here's what I will tell you. I saw it. I was like, there's no way that's a fucking movie, right? And in a way, I was right. It's not a fucking movie. It's 3 fucking movies. They're made by this Russian fella. You can get them on YouTube. It's Forest of the Dead Sharks, Revenge in the Forest of the Dead Sharks, and Murders in the Forest of the Dead Sharks, all from 2019. The first 2 are both 50 minutes long. The third one is an hour and 14 minutes. I'm going to watch all of these tonight before I go to sleep. I need to know what the fuck this is about based on about a 5-second clip that's just randomly in the middle of this movie. You guys, if you caught it, I know you know what I'm talking about. If you've seen them, you definitely know what I'm talking about. I'm going to let Michelle be surprised on this one, but holy shit.
I just went to IMDb to add it to my list, and I did see a clip, or not clip,
did you see the still frame?
The shark. Yep.
Yeah.
I did not catch that in this documentary at all. I apparently blinked at that moment, but I will also be watching this.
I have to know. I have to know.
I really...
That one clip, I was like, this could be the dumbest but most fucking enjoyably dumb shark movie I've ever seen in my life. I've got to check this out. I will let you know tomorrow morning how these movies turned out.
Man.
But, so just... Again, just a great retrospective film on the history of sharks in the movies, and how, again, in so many ways, some of these movies had dramatic impact on the actual world and sharks and the environment. It does make a lot of real strong points about protecting sharks because of their vital position in the ocean ecosystem, and talks about how, like, Peter Benchley, who was famously the author of Jaws, at one time said, I could, now that I know what I know about sharks, I could never make that movie again. I could never bring myself to write this story. It's pretty intense, and I think that if we're going to glorify these things, we definitely need to be paying attention to the real issues as well, because we've seen what can happen when you like they talk about that mockumentary where they made it seem like like the coelacanths, right? Coelacanth is this fish that they thought was extinct for thousands and thousands of years, and then in the 1930s they caught one off the coast of Madagascar, and then all of a sudden they find out, no, they've still been around this whole time, we just never saw them again. And then they do that with a megalodon, and it was this fake documentary, but they sold it like it was real, like Blair Witch style. and really fucked up a lot of things. The movie makes a lot of real strong points about how we, you may not believe it, but these kind of movies can really drive people to some crazy things.
I do hope that with the internet, it's a little harder to cause mass panic. And people are a little bit more careful.
I would think it's even easier with the internet just because of the potential for just volumes and volume.
Mob mentality.
I don't think it's any coincidence that the first real powerful example of that with the Blair Witch Project happened right on the cusp of the internet era. Like, I think the internet actually provides for a lot of opportunities to make a lot of that shit a whole lot more believable, and that's kind of frightening.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure nobody believes the Nazis made shark people on the moon, but
I do.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I haven't seen anything to tell me that's not the case. But anyway, I guess we don't have to get into it right now. I guess I just have a more positive outlook on search intent when people are Googling that. Hopefully, if they were like, is the megalodon real, that they would find answers like, fuck no, it's not. Also, this movie you watched is fake. Here's the very first thing that pops up is an article explaining that to you. So I would hope it would make it a little bit more difficult. But yeah, I guess I'm a little too positive about humanity sometimes. And this movie is reminding me of that. Now I feel sad and I need to go drink more.
That's fair. Guys, definitely check out Sharksploitation. Again, a bang-up documentary from the folks at Shudder, especially if you're a fan of these types of movies. Again, not being somebody who has seen a lot of them, I'm at least aware of a lot of them. Sand Shark, Two-Headed Shark Attack, Six-Headed Shark Attack. By the way, the animation in Six-Headed Shark Attack is hilariously adorable. There's a clip in here where he shows you how at one point the original concept was he wanted the shark to actually come up on land and use its 6 heads as almost like insect legs to walk around on. Holy shit, that would have been something else. But even if you're a big fan, only the biggest of fans will not find something of interest here, and you should definitely check it out.
It was great.
It was. So what's coming up next week, Michelle?
Next week, I have my list. We are getting Lake Bodom. I do this
to her all the time.
I
Lake
know,
Bodom.
and usually I'm top of it, but I've been drinking Lake Bodom from 2016. We were digging into the older catalog because there is no new release.
Lake Bodom, which I know about, have known about for, not the movie, but just what Lake Bodom. Lake Bodom is a real lake in Finland. I know about it and how, apparently, people think it's haunted because, I don't know, a lot of people, there's something relating to a lot of people dying around it, or maybe it's I think I read at one point that there was a time where it was a popular sort of suicide location, kind of like the Suicide Woods in Japan. Mm-hmm. But there's a band from Finland called Children of Bodom. And, that was just a little side note that I went on because I like heavy metals and I like to show off my heavy metals knowledge to people. Children of Bodom, not even a really, obscure heavy metal band. Once you crack the surface, they're right there. But anyway, Lake Bodom is the movie next week. As always, if there's something you would like us to check out one of these weeks that we have an opening in the schedule, please let us know. Michelle, we
need requests. We need requests because we figured out what we're doing in October.
Yes.
For October this year.
Oh, yes. Guys, so you remember last year when we, I'm glad you remembered to remind me to talk about this.
I wrote it
down. So last year in October, because obviously the 31 days of Halloween, watching a horror movie every day, that's been a spooky season tradition for a lot of people for a while now. And Michelle
Including
and I try
us.
to keep that tradition as well. But we did a new episode every single day. In October last year, we had a whole lot of time to prepare. We don't have as much time to prepare this year, but we are still going to try and do that. I say try. We're going to do it. But this year, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be focusing specifically on horror shorts. We will likely watch a couple of anthology films and break them apart short by short, chapter by chapter. But what we would like to also know is if you have any favorite horror shorts that are out there available to be seen. We don't, and frankly, we don't care if they're on Shudder, if they're on YouTube. Maybe it's just an independent filmmaker that has their own website or whatever where you can watch these movies. If you have any favorite short horror movies, we want those recommendations. Drop us a message on the social medias. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, at WeWatchShudder, all those places. We have mail at WeWatchShudder.com where you can drop us an email. Let us know what you would like us to talk about so far as short horror films coming up in October. We're gonna spend some time talking about a lot of that. I'm really excited. There's a couple of things, if you haven't seen it yet on Shudder, there's a couple of things from this year's Etheria Film Night that I thought were just fantastic that I'm going to personally suggest we put into the schedule. I know Michelle's got some very favorite horror shorts that she's eager for us to talk about. Is that not correct, Michelle? You're, in fact, more of a horror shorts person than I am.
I love horror shorts.
Michelle's got lots of horror shorts in her wardrobe. Ha ha!
I was about to make a similar joke. Oh no, we both devolved.
It's your fault.
No, I love horror shorts. There are a lot of very good things. I am excited to throw into the mix, especially because I already email you at 3 a.m. every once in a while. Email. What am I talking about? I Facebook message you because I'm an adult. I message you and I'm like, it's 3 a.m. Here's the thing on YouTube that I saw. Have you heard of this? And you say no. And then you made a mistake because now I'm telling you the entire lore of the back rooms and everything. So, yeah, I'm already sending you these. I already have a list that I love. I'm really, really excited. If our listeners even find like a VHS tape in their closet, don't worry. I have a VCR player. It is by my PS5. And yes, I got bullied for having my
well first you gotta stop right
Yeah.
there. Did you just say a VCR player? I'm pretty sure you said a VCR player.
I probably did. A VCR. Anyway, if you have a VHS tape and you need a VCR to do it, we can do that. Let's say the VHS tape, you've never even watched it. It just makes an odd humming sound, and you're kind of scared. We'll watch it for you. We'll review it if we live in October. Sure. So we got that. We got
Absolutely.
you covered, boo.
Yeah, so drop us those recommendations, guys. In addition to that, as I've been asking for a few weeks now, if you're listening and you enjoy our show, one of the best and easiest ways you can help us continue to expand our reach and get out there to more people is just leave a rating on whatever service you're streaming us through. It'd be nice if you also left a review with some comments, but I don't even care. If you could at least rate the show and go ahead and please give us your honest rating. If there are things we think we're doing wrong, let us know. We want to make this show as good as possible for you guys, and we want to know your feedback. And the more feedback we get, the more we will get pushed out there to more and more people. So if you could do that for us, we would really appreciate it. Do you have any last thoughts, Michelle?
Yeah, I don't want your honest feedback. I'm a very sensitive person. Give JD your honest feedback and give me a sugar-coated version of it, please. I cry every day for some reason or another, and I don't want one of our reviews to be the reason for today.
Michelle, putting bitter coatings on sugar pills. Yeah.
I'm just a sad lady.
Oh, it's totally fine. Thank you guys for joining us for yet another episode of We Watch Shudder. Hey, look, we went almost an hour again talking about sharks and stuff. We also did spend a reasonable amount of time in there talking about Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds and how ridiculous that whole situation even is. We should probably not get off on that tangent again.
I would love to get off on Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. So.
Well, that's staying in the show. Say goodnight, Michelle.
Good night, Michelle, and good night, Blake.